Hello, this is Daniel with Daniel's Bullion Coins. We're here today with Don. We're just chit-chatting, bouncing things back and forth. We thought y'all might want to join in. So what we're talking about is capital controls. I don't know how we got on that, but let's just pick up where we left off, capital controls. And we were talking about how the different administrations want to fight inflation in different ways. And capital controls, back during the Depression, they poured the milk out on the ground to control what the price was, and the farmers said, well, we're better off just pouring it out on the ground than selling it for that. And that led us into where there was no food. You know, they just didn't have the food on the shelves any longer.
So it must have been pretty darn important to them to pour their whatever profits there were out on the ground. I mean, do you have any idea how much the government was saying they had to cut their price? Because that's crazy to me.
I don't remember the exact amount that that they were what they were saying. Okay, you can sell it for 25 cents a gallon, or you can't sell it at all. But a lot of those videos that we see of the Great Depression were kind of staged. Let's stage, and they'll get the camera out there, reporter out there, and they pour, maybe 20 or 30 gallons of milk on the ground or whatever. And they were making a statement, sort of like we protest nowadays. We march up and down the street.
So it wasn't like everybody.
Not like everybody,
okay.
But they were making a point. We're just not. And it's a lot of the farmers, you see the protest over in other countries, where they're bringing the tractors in to London and they're spewing manure everywhere with the manure spreaders or whatever. And they're protesting the fact that they're capital controls, because the options for this next election are two choices. One is capital controls, or we can have higher interest rates and austerity, which is going to be very uncomfortable, but that's the only way to really stop inflation. Sort of like Paul Volcker did back in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. Interest rates went to 21%.
I had a house at 21%.
21. Mm-hmm.
Over in Bloomsbury.
Yeah. I remember I wasn't
crazy.
I was buying houses in the mid 80s and it was still 14-15%. It was still,
this was like 88.
Still kind of coming down, yeah. So the interest rate is what stops all the consumption, stops all the consumption of everything.
It'll slow it down, that's for sure.
Is that better, honey, if I slide over here like this? There you go. Yeah, it slows people down. They stop buying, they stop building, they stop selling. We're talking about maybe an interest rate increase in September. No, decrease in September of 50 basis points. And my belief is that that's going to spur more inflation. Yeah, more inflation, because people will go buy cars, they'll go buy houses, their interest rate on their credit cards will drop, and they'll feel like they can spend some money.
You said 50 basis points. You mean a half?
A half, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, a half, yeah.
I wasn't sure what you're talking about.
Yeah, when you get into talking economics, it's a term. I should have said half, because that's really what everybody understands better than 100 basis points.
I was confused.
Yeah.
I'm easily confused.
Yeah.
About inflation, you were talking earlier what that is doing to, like you were saying, Don, that your income has gone up, but yet at the same time inflation has gone up. I want to hear more what y'all have to say.
Yeah, we were talking about inflation, and we're talking about our kids. Don's kids, my kids, and they're kind of in the lower income bracket. They're young, they're coming along, they don't really have established incomes, and 70% of their income goes towards energy things, whether it's gasoline or food, things that are produced by energy.
They probably are still going to buy a house, have a car payment, they've got, they're in that hamster wheel kind of.
Right. And a lot of times when you buy a house, we can look back at when we were looking at houses when we were in our 20s and 30s. A nice house was $60,000, let's say. Well, that same house in this Washington, D.C. area has the potential of being $600,000 now.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not the point I wanted to make. The point I want to make is when you first sign up for a mortgage, it's usually a quarter or a half of your income. But as you get older and the years go on, the inflation gives you the advantage where now that mortgage payment might be 20% of your income. So you have more spendable income, and the dollar has gone down in value. It's gone up numerically. So you can make that mortgage payment a lot easier.
You know what's interesting? I've got 3 daughters. 2 of them went to college, and 1 of them didn't. The 2 that went to college both have houses, both have done very well. and the one that didn't go to college is not doing well. I'm not a college person.
Right.
Didn't go to college, but it was a different time back then as well.
Yes.
I think it's important, the education
Mm-hmm.
for the younger people, and also they don't seem motivated at all.
Yeah.
College
Yes.
is so different nowadays,
Oh,
too.
yes.
When I went, you know, I was able to pay off it wasn't nearly as expensive.
Oh,
Right. Very expensive now.
when my kids went to George Mason, I thought it was crazy expensive, and it's quadrupled
Yeah.
since then in the
Yes.
last 20 years.
Yeah. And a lot of times you look at what the cost of going to college, and then you've got that expense when you get out. You have to pay the interest, you have to pay that loan back, and then you factor the years that it takes you to pay that note back now. Then you take somebody who went into a trade or started their own business at 18, they're going to be way ahead by the time they're 25 or 30, because the college student is going to catch up to them about 30 or 35, and yet they've got a business that's up and running. And especially for women, that's difficult because they may want to start a family and they've got the debt. Now the husband is strapped with two college educations.
Yeah, not going to college was the best thing I ever did at the time.
At the time.
It made perfect sense. I was 21 years old, which would have been my junior year in college. I was making $85,000 a year. I mean, how does that's not normal, I know, but
One of the biggest mistakes I tell Ingrid all the time, and I really kick myself to this day, that I wish I hadn't have gone to college. When I got out of high school, I was 17, and I started a car business, scrapping cars. And I would haul a car out of someone's yard, they'd give it to me, or I'd pay $10 or $20 for it, and I would strip the parts off of it, tires, wheels, the gasoline, the batteries, motors, transmissions, and I was selling them. And my friends would work all week at Tasty Freeze and make $150, $200. I'd sell a set of tires for $200. And I quit all that and went to college. Big mistake. I never should have done that. I should have stayed with the car business, been independent, what I enjoyed.
well, what do you think about college right now, though?
The expense is way too high. Trades, you can get a trade. You know, you go in and you learn to be an electrician. Let's take something simple like electrician. They're needed
Oh God,
so
yeah.
bad.
You can make tons of money. I've tried to get an electrician, a plumber, which
Yes.
I finally did get a good plumber, and somebody to do handyman work.
Yes.
It's almost impossible
Yes.
to find anybody to do it. And when they do it, it's 4 times what you
Right.
thought it
What
was.
you
gonna
thought
be.
it should be.
Where you said inflation really shows up in
Yes.
the service.
Yes, there's nothing that runs higher on inflation than the service industry. And so let's take an average person, and let's say they're 16, 15 years old. Get a job doing some electrical, and then do a plumbing. Get a job with a plumber, and be an apprentice, be a carpenter, and learn all of those trades. By the time you're 20, 25 years old, you get yourself a van, outfit it with some tools. People would love you to pieces, and they would pay you whatever you wanted.
No question.
Do a little welding, do a little glass repair, painting. Maybe not so much painting, there's not much money in that, but electrical tradesmen, and take your little van, ride around. Then when you want to take a
yeah.
vacation, you just lock the van, get in your car, your Corvette, and go on your vacation.
Yeah.
You know, because you own the business and you can take off.
Makes perfect sense to me.
The most amount of money that I ever made in my life, and I've done a lot of different things. The most amount of money that I ever made was when I had one little van and I did it by myself, and I had everything, tools and whatever I needed, and I went around, and we had just gotten married, and Ingrid's eyes just was like, look at what this guy makes. I made good money. The trades guys, I was at the prime.
Well, yeah, you were a service provider for Home Depot.
Can you'd be killing it right now if,
Oh,
if you
gosh.
continue to do
Yeah,
that. I
if it
mean,
wasn't for the fact that I turned 60 the other day.
Well, the market went down, the housing market.
Yes.
That's where we
The housing market crashed, and
carpentry, remodel instead of.
yes, I was in the cabinets and doors, Home Depot install kind of stuff, and the market turned 08, 09, and we saw that as an opportunity to get out of having to carry French doors and countertops up fire escapes and around behind houses, and go into something that we felt like was going to be more economically feasible in the long run, which of course is the gold and silver, and that's why we have the coin shop now, something I can do into my 80s, where the days were getting where I couldn't carry a French door anymore and carry countertops. Occasionally, if I had a door that was just a mammoth door and I had to bring it on a trailer, I'd stop at the 7-Eleven. There were guys hanging around. I'd say, hey, two guys, you want to make $100 a day? Come help me carry this door. It's all you got to do. Carry this door up the steps. And
Are they still there?
this was in Georgia.
I'm curious because I knew they used to be at 7-Eleven all the time. But
Yes.
I'm not out in the mornings anymore.
Well,
so.
a friend of mine needed concrete poured on her front porch, and this has been a couple of years ago, a few years ago. And I went to the 7-Eleven right over here by Wegmans, and there were 3 or 4 guys out there. And I told all of them, I said, I'll be here tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. Anybody wants to make $20 an hour? And when I got there the next day, there they were, a bunch of guys standing around. I said, well, 3 or 4 of y'all come on with me. And I supervised them, told them what to do, and we poured that concrete, you know. So that's the way to do it, is just to go get day labor. Now, when I had the construction company, and like you're saying, the risk and all that, just so you all know that I think the best way to do it right now is Kelly Service. And I did that when I had the liability of the company. I was, you know, this is just something I was doing for a friend. But for liability's sake and security, go through a Kelly Service. Just go down, pick them up right there at Kelly Service in the morning. 3 or 4 guys. You can even say, hey, I want them to know how to do concrete. Sure, they might be $35, $50, whatever they are now, and get a job done and return them. And then it's just you and your van again without all of the human resources responsibility. We got way off track. Let's go back real quick while we got a minute. Don Kennedy asked a really good question, and we just want to get that on the tape. So we were talking about the J.P. Morgan manipulation of gold and silver. And I was telling Don about how you can look at the graph on Monday morning and you can see where it stair steps down. And it's 1 billion ounces that was sold inside of 1 minute. Why would somebody sell 1 billion ounces or whatever it was, all the silver that's mined in a year was all sold in 1 minute in the middle of the night, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and you'll see it once, twice, 3 times, sometimes 4 or 5 times. And you'll see it right on the chart. 1 minute, again and again. All the silver that was mined in a year. That's where you can see the manipulation of the price of silver. So Don's question was, well, who takes the other side of that bet? And we had a great example of that this past week. 24 hours before the Japanese market collapse, some guys got together and put $90,000 down on, I think it was 6,000 contracts, which would have netted them $30 million. And with the Israeli-Iran, if you go back and you look in history at when the Carter administration started the Straits of Hormuz, they shut down the Straits of Hormuz, silver really did climb that same percentage back then when the Straits of Hormuz were shut down. So these guys got together and they said, it looks like the Straits of Hormuz might get shut down in the next few days with this Iran or Israeli war. And so to them, it's like Don was saying, it's like buying a lottery ticket to them, to these rich guys. You know, their income is in the millions a week. And so what's 90,000 amongst them to bet that they might make 30 million if they win?
Peanuts.
So that's the other side of the trade. And that's why the manipulators like J.P. Morgan are able to do it.
I wasn't even aware that there was a manipulator or someone that had that much of a percentage of the silver. I
Yes,
didn't know that.
Good question. Well, the way that they do it is they really don't. What they do is, let's back up to '08. What happened was there was Bear Stearns and J.P. Morgan, and they each controlled half of the market. And I believe that they were thrown out. The reason Bear Stearns was pushed out was because they wanted to take the 50% control of the market from Bear Stearns and give it to J.P. Morgan. So J.P. Morgan now held 100% control of the silvers. And at that time, side note, they owned no silver at all.
Isn't that illegal, though?
Well, the government looks the other way. The SEC looks the other way because they want to protect the dollar. And the way they protect the dollar is by keeping silver and gold manipulated down. So they gave J.P. Morgan the right to 500 pieces of paper to 1 ounce of silver. So when you have 500 and the other person only has 1, you can push and control. That's how come they can drop a year's worth of production in 1 minute. I mean, if you're an investor, why would you sell in the middle of the night, all in 1 minute, and all that you could possibly come up with in a year? See, it doesn't make sense. If you want to sell, you sell during the day and try to get as much for your money as possible. But these guys intentionally sell in the middle of the night, and then they catch people who have stop calls in. So like they're like, I don't want to. So Joe Blow over here doesn't want to lose any money. He puts while he's sleeping, he'll put a stop in. He'll say sell at this price. Well, when J.P. Morgan hammers it down, they catch those people who have sell orders in, which speeds it up. That's how come they stair step it 1, 2, 3, 4 times right in a row.
Interesting how that works.
Yes, and it'll actually gain traction because you're like, hey, I paid $100 an ounce. Let me out if it gets to 99. So they'll find those people, and they can actually look in and see where people's stop orders are.
What is their advantage then to do it?
Okay, so what they do is they place a bet ahead of time, a derivative bet, which is a $2.5 quadrillion market. So they'll place a bet on the other side. Hey, I think it's going to drop by tomorrow morning. And then people like these other guys, you know.
See how that happens?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what I say. It sounds illegal to me. I just
No,
don't.
it does.
It's not.
Legal.
Yeah, I mean, the government's involved. They
Yes.
know about it,
Yes.
and
Protect them.
yeah, it's not very good.
And we can look and see what they're doing. It's not like we're blind. We can look right at the charts, and we can see that it doesn't make sense. And then we go into looking at what happens. I'll give you an example. There was a friend of mine, wholesaler, and he told me about a customer that bought millions of dollars in paper contracts. And when he went to them, to JP Morgan, and said, okay, I want to take delivery of the silver. And they said, well, we'll give you $2 per ounce, or we'll give you $3 per ounce. He said, no, I want to take delivery. He wanted to try to collapse sort of like JP Morgan, the Hunt brothers did. He was trying to, collapse the silver price. So they went to court, and the guy ends up basically losing. He has to take the money. But they passed a law, and they called it the help the consumer on silver, but it actually gave JP Morgan the right to lie to people and charge them for storage and charge them for insurance to protect their silver that's supposedly in this vault or whatever, but they really don't have it. But they won the right in the lawsuit to lie to the American people about how much they have and what's it worth on. And by the way, JP Morgan had 0 ounces of silver back in 08 and 09, and now they have, it's in the hundreds of millions of ounces. I forget the exact number, but it's an astronomical amount of silver, tangible silver, that they actually hold now, because they know.
To manipulate it down, the paper price.
Yes,
So he can buy tangible silver and gold
exactly.
at the low price.
That's what they've been doing for the last 15 years, since 08. They've been manipulating the price down, and now they've been accumulating all this silver along. When the price was $16, $17 an ounce, they were just scarfing up the actual silver.
So that him and along with the other elites, that's what they're doing. They are amassing huge amounts of silver and gold because they know what's
The rich get richer and the poor get
well,
poorer.
they know what's coming too. And
Yes.
The ETFs, the stock market, and all that work.
Yeah, well, they can look out. They understand the banking crisis. They understand why they're printing trillions of dollars. They tell you they don't know, and they'll tell you all this stuff and blah, 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 but they know what's coming, because that's why they're playing the game, and they're stacking the silver, and because they want to be in control when the bottom falls out of the dollar.
So my next question would be, why do tangible gold and silver kind of follow the spot, quote unquote, price of the paper?
They do, the tangible do follow really, really close, and a lot of that goes back to the production. So I tell you, a lot of times the way I hear that question is, why do I sell the silver? If I believe it's so important and so valuable, why am I willing to sell it? Why don't I just keep it? And it's the same with the miners. Why do the miners sell their silver at this price when it's really worth more? What happens is the cost that goes into it, the manipulators are able to see what it actually cost them. So let's say the spot price is $30 and the miner is doing it for 25. He's able to get it out of the ground for 25. He finds the easiest spots to work on, the best places to get it from. So he gets it for $25 per ounce. So he's making $5. So he's able to feed his family and do things like that. Well, then you've got the coin guy who is selling silver, and he's making some money, but he's feeding his family, but he's selling a product he believes in. And that's why that's why I'm in the business. It's a product I believe in, and we sell it. And same with the miner. He's selling it just as long as they let him make that $5 over what it cost him to get it out of the ground. But we're consuming it now with EVs and solar, a lot of new ways it's being consumed medically. Solar panels,
Cell
phones, all these electronics and everything are consuming it way faster than before.
And that's why I'm buying it.
There you go. That's why we're buying it.
Yeah.
So the reason that they're able, that they sell it, is as long as they're willing to feed their family, keep the operation up and running. And that way, when it does go to 150, they'll be there. Sort of like building a farm. You're not, it's very unprofitable right now, but you'll be there. You'll have the skills and the resources. It'll be something worth a lot of money one day.
You got any silver for me at spot?
Everyone has that.
We get that phone call a lot,
Oh,
don't we?
my goodness. But at the same time, there will be where gold and silver tangibles will break away.
Yes.
Probably from the ETF price. And
Yes,
the spot price.
they will unhook one
Yeah,
day.
One day when things kind of.
Begin to unravel. We'll pick up there on the next video. Got a lot going on here. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks. Bye.
Cool.
Thanks, Don.
Yeah.